I started this project last year and I've made a few videos about the previous versions, but I'm back and with some pretty big updates. The device is still built around Raspberry Pi's so-called AI camera.
I love AI.
Which uses the Sony IMX500 intelligent image sensor. This sensor integrates a camera and a small neural network accelerator into a single chip, letting you run a small neural network model directly on the camera itself to process images at up to 30 frames a second. We can therefore run image-based object detection models, such as the YOLO class of object detectors, to detect and identify objects with the camera. And what the model can identify will depend on what data it's trained on. I've been using this sort of edge compute AI detection for some time now, primarily for autonomously detecting and identifying wildlife. Because the model runs on the neural network accelerator on the camera itself, it means the computer that we attach the camera to can be quite low powered. In my case, I'm using the Raspberry Pi 02W. For context, the way the original device worked was pretty straightforward. The camera, when initialized, continuously feeds image frames into the object detection model we've loaded on there, completely independently of the Pi 0. The code I wrote would then retrieve an image along with any available detections at some interval, say 10 times a second. If the confidence level of the reported detection exceeded a confidence threshold, we would do a few things. First, you would have the option to just save the detection results as plain text, basically just logging the result. You can also obviously just save the image. We could also then use a confident detection to start video recording. This type of architecture, where we are constantly and immediately processing data on the device that collected it, is called real-time edge computing, which I'm a big proponent of. Even though, yes, this method does use more power, there are many advantages to this approach over simpler motion detection-based methods that use passive infrared sensors or radar to trigger and capture an image. Firstly, as it's already on, the response time is much faster, and because the camera is always running, we can use video pre-capture, where we can save footage from a few seconds before the actual detection event. Most importantly, we can detect things that passive infrared or radar just won't pick up, such as small objects like insects or large objects like vehicles at a distance. We can basically detect anything that appears in the image. As for the benefits of edge computing over just processing the data on a local server or in the cloud, well, a big benefit of edge compute is obviously we don't require a network connection for the basic operation of the device. This means we have a lot more flexibility in where and how we can set it up. And because we are processing images on the device itself, again, we have a much faster local response time, enabling us to potentially react in real time to detections to do things like deploy a deterrent or maybe open a gate. The system is also overall simpler in my opinion. The first version of the device had the electronics housed in this PETG 3D printed enclosure with a little acrylic window that was glued in place with some silicon sealant. I powered it via the PV Pi L3V7 with a custom 2P 21700 10 amp hour battery pack, which provided about 12 hours of runtime. This meant that it could operate through daylight hours before being taken back inside to charge. And this routine wasn't too bad. I'd put it out during the day and taken in at night. Couldn't operate during the nighttime because the camera has an infrared filter, so you can't use infrared light for nighttime monitoring. But having to collect it and charge it and remember to put it outside every night was a bit annoying. Not to mention the fact that you couldn't set it very far from where you were living, and the whole point of this edge compute system is that you can deploy it in remote locations. The obvious solution was therefore to just simply add solar power so it could run more or less indefinitely. Simple in theory, but not so simple in practice. I'd already been looking at solar power solutions for my larger Raspberry Pi 5 powered camera boxes, and based off of a lot of testing that I'd done with those, I knew that to power a device like a Raspberry Pi indefinitely using only solar power requires your power supply to be robust. Where I am in Melbourne, Australia, at certain times of the year, it's pretty common to have a few days of heavy rain in a row, or potentially a whole week of overcast skies. This means that we may have several days in a row where we're producing minimal or no solar energy. That not only means that the battery pack has to supply power for several days in a row, but it's going to be really important that we collect as much solar energy as possible when the sun is out, which means charging your battery as fast as possible, even for lower powered single board computers like the Raspberry Pi Zero. After searching online, looking at some other projects and testing out hardware myself, I wasn't having much luck. It became obvious that none of the available Raspberry Pi hats or accessories that had those important features like battery voltage monitoring and power on-off scheduling would work. And there were three main reasons why that was. Firstly, most of them could not charge a battery at very high currents, mostly it was 1 to 2 amps. As I said, if you're now relying on solar power completely, you want to charge your battery as fast as possible. Second, pretty much all of them could only charge a single cell or 1S battery pack, which have a pretty low energy capacity. It also meant that that 1 to 2 amps of charge current was at 3 to 4 volts, which only equates to about 10 watts of charging, which is nowhere near enough even for a Pi Zero. Finally, pretty much none of them offered true maximum power point tracking for solar power inputs, which is way more efficient and reliable than a simple buck boost converter. I originally did just use a buck boost converter for some of my older boxes, and people were telling me that that's fine, but it really was not great. And maybe I'll go into more detail as to why in a future video. So I had this problem that was now affecting quite a few of my projects, and I really wanted to solve it. And if you're a regular to my channel, you know I did that by teaming up with one of my friends, Matt, to design our own Raspberry Pi hat, the PV Pi. The PV Pi is a solar power management hat for the Raspberry Pi and is compatible with a bunch of other single board computers. It has true maximum power point tracking, battery charging up to a peak of 10 amps for 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery packs, which means this caps out at about 140 watts of charging with sufficient cooling. If you're unfamiliar with the 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery packs, they're a standard 4S lithium iron phosphate battery pack with an inbuilt BMS or battery management system that handles the balance charging as well as a bunch of other safety features. You can also get them in a wide range of capacities. This one's 60 amp hours. The one in there is 12 amp hours. And yes, the PV Pi is only compatible with the 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery packs. This is designed for off-grid powering of your Raspberry Pi. And for that, we need a high capacity battery that can be left outside for long periods of time. And lithium iron phosphate battery packs are a lot safer and far more durable than other lithium battery types. As for the solar input, the PV Pi works with 12 volt and most 24 volt solar panels, so it's quite flexible. And importantly, for remote Raspberry Pi projects, it can communicate directly with the Raspberry Pi to report things like battery voltage and charge current, and also has a real-time clock for power scheduling and more. We launched the PV Pi as a Kickstarter last year under the AutoEcology brand, and as of about a couple of months ago, we shipped out over 500 units. But I won't go into it any more than that. I'll go into it plenty in my previous videos, and this video is not just an advertisement for the PV Pi, I promise, but it's about what it now allows me to do with some of my projects, including the mini AI wildlife monitor. One of the first changes I needed to make was to the enclosure. I need to increase the size and shape as the PV Pi is a full-sized hat. I also needed to fit some SP13 connectors because I'm using a much larger battery now. It sits outside of the enclosure, and these feed in both battery and solar power inputs. As I said, the battery is a 12 amp hour lithium iron phosphate and is capable of providing about 5 days of power to the Pi Zero, the fan, and the camera, which combined draws about 2 to 2.5 watts, and I've got it powered for about 12 hours a day. The solar panel I'm using is a 30 watt solar panel and can provide pretty much a full day's worth of energy, even on partially overcast days. The updated enclosure is still 3D printed in PETG and remains pretty similar overall in its design, including the 20mm acrylic window for the camera that's glued in place with the silicone sealant. Now, using a 3D printed enclosure to house electronics outside always seems to stir up a bit of controversy. You know, 3D prints aren't strictly watertight, they'll let water in and they'll corrode your electronics. But I've been doing it for years and have never had any problems, not just with these camera projects, but with other projects as well. But I've got a lot of comments and I'm not too sure what sort of conditions people are putting their 3D printed enclosures in.
In a 2.5-hour trip, he went deeper than the last glimmers of sunlight, deeper than the Titanic's final resting place, and this is what Cameron saw.
At this point, I've been doing it long enough myself now to say that it works. As long as your enclosure is sensible, it's fine, and you should do it. And besides, that's not even the most controversial aspect of my enclosures, which is also included in this, and that is the active ventilation. So fresh air is drawn through the top and blown out the bottom through a little fan in there so that we can keep the insides cool. Even with the original design with no solar charging, on hot days, the insides would get quite hot and the Pi Zero would crash. And with the addition of the solar charging now, the PV Pi produces a little bit extra heat and the active ventilation just keeps the inside cool. Not to get too stuck on this again, but I've heard it all. It won't last a month outdoors, moisture will cause corrosion and destroy the electronics. Well, I've been testing some version of this design with the active ventilation for about 5 months with the same components, and they've had no issue. The whole thing's still going strong. Not to mention that the very first Raspberry Pi powered camera boxes that I built with the Pi 5 had active ventilation, and people assured me that the Raspberry Pi, the camera, the AI hat, all inside wouldn't last more than a few months outdoors. Well, I built that at the end of 2024, and I had it in various locations in different environments running for 6 months and had no issues. The components were all fine, there was no corrosion, and that same Raspberry Pi and AI hat are still outdoors in a different enclosure for a different project, also with active ventilation, and they are just fine. Now, before you leave a comment, I perfectly understand that this would not work in some environments. The humidity might be too high, or you're too close to the coast, and the salt spray would cause additional problems. I understand, but I built this for where I am, and where I am, my main issue has been heat. And while we do get some condensation at certain times of year, it hasn't been an issue for me yet. But for those who do need a fully sealed enclosure or would just prefer it, there is a version with no active ventilation. Did I mention that all of the STLs for this project are available for download? One of the main reasons this video has taken so long to put out, other than the PV Pi project, is because I've been slowly designing different versions of the enclosure, as well as some accessories to make this a fully complete and standalone system. So there's this one with the active ventilation, the vents, and room for a 30mm fan. And there's this version that is fully sealed, no active ventilation. So there's a fully sealed one with 2 ports. There's also one with 3 ports. There's a separate lid with room for the AI camera, and there's also another version with no hole for any camera that you can also use for other projects. There's versions of each enclosure with slots for a mounting strap or tabs for screw mounts. There's the battery box that fits this 12 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery that also has some dovetail slots and a bracket to go on to the pole mounts. There's also this solar panel mount that uses these 2020 T-slot extrusions to hold a small solar panel like this 30-watt one. There's the pole mounting clamps for a 40mm pole that screw into the battery box bracket, and the enclosure mounting brackets that come in 2 different versions for the enclosures with and without the ventilation, all of which you can screw together with the same 6G 9mm self-tapping screws. I designed the enclosure so that if you do use the PV Pi, you can reuse the mounting hardware to mount the Pi Zero and PV Pi onto the mounting plate, which itself then gets screwed into the body of the enclosure with 4 6mm M3 screws. The hinge clips, like before, each require 2 40mm M3 nuts and bolts. To make it easier to install them, you can attach the nuts and bolts to the enclosure body first and clip on the hinges, and then thread the bolts through the lid and the clips. And as the name suggests, these hinges are also clips, and you can open and close the enclosure from either side. To seal the lid to the body and stop water from getting in through the sides, you can print a gasket in soft TPU or just fill the gasket groove with silicone sealant. I've printed and tested all of these components in PETG because it's a high temperature filament that most people can easily print out. However, if possible, I would recommend ABS or ASA, especially for the battery box and the solar panel mount, as the additional weight of those on very hot days could cause the PETG to soften and sag, and over time could potentially break. In any case, you can find all of these on my Maker World page with some additional information on how to print them, as well as some links to components. As for the software, it's still open source and remains largely the same. I have made the setup and installation quite a bit easier. The full installation instructions are in the README on the project repo, so I won't go into too much detail here. The main update to the functionality is around how it handles detections. Previously, every detection above the confidence threshold would trigger a save image if image saving was enabled. What this meant was that if an animal stood still in front of the camera for long periods of time, it could result in thousands of near identical images being saved. So the new approach does a few things. Firstly, it uses a per class exponential moving average of the detections over time. This helps reduce the false positive rate, as the confidence level would have to build up over time before the device ever did anything. Now, once that averaged confidence exceeds the threshold, the system enters an active event mode. The start of this mode is what triggers video recording if it's enabled with that pre-capture buffer of a few seconds before the event. At this time, we also save the current image, and while in this active mode, the detection frame that has the highest confidence level is also kept track of. And when the object leaves and the event ends, the highest confidence frame is saved and recording stops. And again, this logic is per class, allowing you to keep track of multiple different class types, which will be captured independently during the same active event. This is basically a very simple post-processing method that works well on the Pi Zero. I'm currently saving the images and results to a mini USB flash drive. These drives have a limited write endurance, and I've had a few die on me, probably due to the heavy image writing of the first version. The new detection logic will substantially reduce the number of writes, so hopefully this should somewhat mitigate the issue, but it's important to be aware of. You can get some pretty small USB SSDs these days, which have a much higher write endurance, though they're quite a lot more expensive and can produce quite a bit of heat. I won't go over the step-by-step setup of the PV Pi and the PV Pi Manager software, as there's a whole tutorial series on the AutoEcology channel that goes into quite a bit of detail on how you can set that up. There's also a 40-page user manual if you want to have a bit of a read. For my setup, I soldered a dual-core cable from both the battery and solar panel to the SP13 plugs, and wired the sockets to the XT30 connectors that plug into the PV Pi, which are also provided with the PV Pi. The PV Pi itself sits on top of the Pi Zero and interfaces and powers it via the 40-pin header. I also have a real-time clock backup battery plugged in so that the PV Pi can keep track of time even when the main battery is disconnected. You do have to be careful when plugging in the battery and solar panel, as both the plugs are the same. You could make one of them a 3-pin connector and only use 2 of the pins, so you can't plug one into the other, but I like to live dangerously, so I haven't done that. As for the PV Pi Manager setup, I have it configured to handle the low battery shutdown and restart on recharge. And I'm also using it to schedule the basic sleep-wake schedule for the Raspberry Pi, shutting down at night and waking up in the morning. So I've had this device in some version of this final form out for a few weeks, pointed at some seed and water I've left out for the birds. For this project, I've also trained a bird identification model that can ID up to 52 of local species. I collected and labeled a bunch of images from online sources and then trained and exported a YOLO 11N model using the method I talked about in my very first Raspberry Pi AI video. And it would take way too much time to discuss it here, so if you're interested, you can check out that video. I've also included that bird model in my GitHub repo that's exported and ready to run on the IMX500 camera. That's as well as the default Coco YOLO model that's on there. You'll need to swap out the model path as well as the label path in the config file to use it. It won't be of much use if you aren't here in Australia, but as most, if not all, of the existing AI species identification projects that are out there are for strictly or mostly American or European species, I don't feel too bad about making one that's only for Australian birds. The model isn't perfect, and with some additional data curation, I'll improve it in the future, but for now it's pretty good. The most common birds we see here are the introduced spotted dove and the native crested pigeon, with both the native noisy miner and the introduced common miner making an appearance sometimes. Unfortunately, none of the galahs or little corellas or gang cockatoos that are in the area this time of year seem to have made an appearance, which is one limitation of image-based detection. You need to know where to point the camera, which is why for animals like birds, bats, and frogs, audio-based bioacoustic monitoring is far more common. In any case, we can visualize our results by plotting out the detections over time to see which birds appear when. Here I'm just overlaying the detections over a few weeks onto a single day so we can see what time of day we see the most birds. So as amazing as all this is, there is sort of one problem with this project, and that is with the component that kind of makes it possible, the PV Pi. There's no issue with its functionality, it's just the PV Pi is currently out of stock after its first production run. And while we plan to open pre-orders in the future and have another manufacturing run, that will take a few months to complete. But I know a few people did purchase the PV Pi because they were interested in this project and have been patiently waiting for this video to come out. The PV Pi is not required to build this, you can use some other power supply. But for the full solar power battery management system experience, the PV Pi makes it a lot easier, if I do say so myself. It'd be really exciting to see some people deploy this beyond my backyard. So if you do build one and set it up somewhere, please let me know. In any case, that's the latest update for my mini AI wildlife monitor. You can check out the links in the description for more information and leave your questions in the comments below or even on my Discord server. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.